Hi, my name is Pawan Murthy. I'm General Manager of Online Business at BMW Financial Services. In addition to driving digital strategy for the company, I also run a business unit called UpToDrive.com. It's our online auto finance division where we finance all makes and models and is the subject of our discussion today. A couple years ago, Edmunds.com conducted a survey that caused quite a bit of consternation in the auto finance, in the auto industry. So it's one thing to know like some of the difficulties of your purchase process, but it's another thing altogether to have it so eloquently thrown in your face. In fact, there was only one question, and the question was this. Now, I've been in the auto industry for about 8-9 years, and I know all the tricks of the trade, and I have my own visceral reaction to this question. But I would like to ask the audience, if there is an opportunity to do so, what you thought some of the answers were, or what are some of your answers to this question? Clean a toilet. Go to the desk. Eat a porcupine.
Get a mani-pedi.
Yeah, so clean. So the last time I gave this talk, there was a root canal, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Where was this Mercedes dealership?" And but anyway, so some of the answers went like this: 39% of the respondents said that they would give up Facebook, which I think is not true because plenty of my friends claim that they're off of social media only to be back a week later. 29% of the respondents said that they would give up their cell phone, which is even also inconceivable because I can't live without my cell phone for more than 2 hours. But a disturbing 20% said that they would give up sex for a month. Again, the last time I talked, there was somebody in the audience that kind of looked over at somebody else who I presume was their spouse and said, "So?" You know, so I said, "Give me a real challenge," or whatever. Anyway, anyway, this is the second day of the conference. It's downhill from here, let's put it that way. So clearly we have challenges as an industry, and BMW, we're doing a lot of things to alleviate these issues. We're redesigning all of our stores to make it more open. We have lots of electronic e-contracting where the customer can sign on an iPad and make everything seamless. We have pre-approvals. There's plenty of things that we're doing on the store side of the business. But we're also working online, and that's where UpToDrive comes in. So UpToDrive.com was launched. In fact, I was hired by BMW to launch UpToDrive. It's an auto finance company that's direct to consumer. So you go online, you fill out a credit application, and if you're approved, you get a check in the mail. It's an empty check. We call it the drive check. And you're approved for some amount. Let's say it's $30,000, $40,000. You walk into any dealership and negotiate as if you have cash on hand, as if you have this money in your checking account. And as a result of whatever you write in that check, you get invoiced that set amount. So you know exactly your rate. You know exactly how much you're willing to spend, and you have control. And we call this empowered financing. And I'll explain to you why this is important in a little bit. And I think what we have done here is really captured a major shift in the way customers shop for a major purchase such as a car. Now, to illustrate this, I drew a picture, but my skills at pictures are only squares and circles, so I give you this. What my hope to do was to make this more industry agnostic as much as possible. It can be very auto-centric, but this is not an auto-specific crowd. So what I was hoping to do is illustrate it in such a way where the customer journey goes from left to right, from initial to some sort of end, and there's three major aspects of it. Research in the green is what any customer actually does on their own to gather information on their own, websites, brochures, what have you. Social is not necessarily social media, but it's the circle of influence that you're in, or your own circle of influence. So people that influence you, or people that influence, that you are influenced, that you influence. This could be family, friends, maybe one of your uncles is just a complete car fanatic. That's what I'm talking about. And obviously visit is actually going to the store, making the attempt at looking at something in person. Whether there's a purchase or not, it's irrelevant, but you've made the attempt to go look at something. Now, in the past, a customer would go online, do some research, and then go to the store, go to the dealership. They would then leave. Then they would come back, or they'd ask a friend or ask their neighbor or what have you, and they would go to the store again. Or there was some combination of it, and so on and so forth, 4 or 5 times until an actual purchase was made. Now this is pretty statistically true. About 10 years ago, which is what I consider then, the average amount of visits was between 4 and 5. Now, it's about 1, between 1 and 2. Now, a lot of marketing pundits some time ago would say, oh, well, this is obvious. Look at, from a research perspective, look at just how much information there is there. There's probably 100 times more information now that there was 10 or 15 years ago with virtual showrooms and review sites and what have you. So there's tremendous amount more information. What about social media? I mean, what an amazing connectivity we have with our friends and colleagues that validates our purchase decisions or invalidates them or provides some sort of feedback. It's a great conversation we can have over the purchase of your car. Now, if you can tell from the tone of my voice, I don't think that's necessarily true. In fact, I think what's happening, instead of this continuum of interaction and research to a one point, is something that looks more like this. Now, research. Yes, there's more information. My question to you is, do you really need it? Let's say if we could quantify the amount of information in our head required to make an informed decision. Let's say it's 200 megabytes. I don't know. So let's say it's 200 megabytes of images and videos and spreadsheets and whatever. Let's just say 200. And if we do really think that there's 100 times more information, does that mean we need 20 gigabytes of information? Has our need for information to make a decision grown proportionally to the amount that's out there? I don't think so. In fact, I think there's too much information out there that we stop choosing a decision based off of the merits of our options, but we start surrendering. And I think that's what happens, especially in the auto industry. If you ever shop for a car, it's intimidating to begin with, because I think there's just too many options. Social. The problem with social is, maybe this is just an account of my friends, is they just don't care what I say. Or even if they do, the nature of social media is difficult to have an extensive conversation without George Takei coming up and another George Takei coming up and another. It's sort of like this flow of stuff that it's very difficult to have an engaged relationship unless it's something important like someone getting married or someone passing or a cat. So that's why social media may not have lent itself to this sort of discussion and validation of your choice as much as it was intended to. Now what ends up happening is a customer goes through this process, the second largest purchase they make, alone and potentially underinformed. And this is what I call the customer advocacy vacuum. And this is exactly where Up to Drive succeeds. See, in my opinion, to be an advocate, you have to do 3 things really well. You have to be objective. You have to be informative or an expert, so you have to be an expert, and you have to be an enabler. Now, while research and websites out there are certainly informative, they may not be an enabler. I haven't seen a banner ad yet that has compelled me to buy a car when I wasn't in the market for it. Now, if you have found one of those, let me know, because that's worth billions of dollars. While social media, while your friends might be objective, they may not be an expert. And I don't know how much of an enabler they are. And certainly, while the dealer in our world, while they are an expert and they can enable, they are not exactly looked upon as objective because they want you to buy from them and they want you to buy from their car, that vehicle. But Up to Drive does something different. We have this relationship with the customer where, yeah, we'd like you to finance with us, but you don't have to. In fact, you can use our approval to walk in and negotiate a better deal. And if you can get a better deal, that's great. And we'll give them pluses and minuses of which way you can go and what have you. In fact, when we talk about our call, so we have a call center. They're all auto loan specialists is what we call them. Our average handle time is 15 minutes. And it's only because we're a profit center. And so when I compare that to perhaps our inbound customer call center, which is 30 seconds, they fell on their chair when I told them our average talk time is 15 minutes. So we don't actually have a limit on how long someone can talk to the customer, because it's a big purchase. And the fact that we say, not only can we give you the money to buy something, and we don't care if you use it, maybe that's too strong. We'd really like you to use it, but you're not obligated to, really disarms a customer and provides that advocacy that I think is sorely missed in this industry. Now, I explain all that to you in ad nauseum because our question really then becomes, before I do that, I can say, well, does it work? And the answer is a resounding yes. And here's just like perhaps four out of first of all, if you write this long of a 5-star review, most of these are on LendingTree and other websites like Yelp. That says something pretty impressive. I won't even go through it. This one says, wonderful service. It was so, with 7 O's, much better than to have our financing before we got to the dealership. It was great. I'll pass it. But what I really liked was this last one. I didn't even use your service. I'm still giving you a 5-star review. I think that's pretty impressive. It just so happened there were some timing issues. The customer here just couldn't get to the dealership on time, whatever. But they still felt compelled to give us a 5-star. And this is 4 out of 1,000 plus that you see. So it's definitely working. And when I poll a lot of my friends, yes, this is a very stressful process. It's great that I have a partner. And so the question then really becomes, how can we translate this something to online? How can we translate to something virtual? And we had a system in the past that was kind of a crowdsourced FAQ, but it still had its difficulties. And out of that, we kind of realized that we had certain criteria that we needed to have a nice advocate for the customer that can embody what we do at Up to Drive online. And some of these were the following: immediate. Like, the answer had to be quick. The previous system was all email-based, so if we weren't open and the customer asked a question that wasn't in the database, they'd have to wait. It has to be personal. It has to be one-to-one and intelligent. So it should react to the customer in many ways instead of just an FAQ. Contextual and fun, right? So it has to be enjoyable for you to use it, and also be able to understand what's your situation. Extensible, it has to grow with us, so if we add on new products, et cetera, it should do that as well. And as an added bonus, it should bring about world peace, which we'll see what happens. All right, so our old process was pretty, it was about halfway there. It certainly didn't bring about world peace, but it did accomplish some of it. And when we got to the process of sending out an RFP to get a solution for this, we were not even considering a virtual assistant. We weren't even considering a virtual assistant because we just quite honestly didn't realize that this was a solution for us. And indeed, what we got was our Up to Drive Assist, which is powered by Nuance. It does all 7 of them. And the world peace thing is in a rider in their contract. It's kind of interesting. It's we're still waiting there. Our service level on that is kind of long. But anyway, so what we did was we established the Up to Drive Assist, and it resides on our website. And you can go to uptodrive.com. You can do it even now if you do it on your phone. It'll go to our mobile site. But if you do it on a laptop or an iPad, it should pull up the desktop site, and you'll be able to play with it. But ask it any question you want. We launched this about a year ago, and there's some metrics that we have. We get about 1,000 interactions a month on it. We get about 80% as first-time. I'm losing the word here. It's basically they're able to resolve the first-time resolution. So when they start a session, they've essentially been able to answer their questions through this, because it's populated with a tremendous amount of information behind it, as well as logic as well. So how do I make a payment? How do I pay off my loan? That answers many things like, well, are you a dealer or are you a customer? Because those are two different things. Are you planning to do this overnight? Are you trying? So there's lots of trees that go along as far as what needs to be asked. The average, the number of interactions here is about 4. So there's 4 different kinds of interchanges that actually happens through this. And we've actually seen some, while we did not intend this to be a call deflection, because as a sales center, we actually want to talk to customers, because we think that we really endear ourselves with the customers in that way. What we found was that we see sometimes up to a 15% reduction in our sales cycle, which we were not even intending. And what seems to happen is that all the customers are asking the Up2Drive Assist all the basic questions, and they're leaving all the more complex questions, such as, I'm going through a recent divorce, how do I blah, blah, blah with my loan, how does this work? That's left to our call center agents. So some interesting results. What we'd like to do, what we like to do in the future, obviously, is implement Spanish in there as well, multilingual. We'd like to bring this on the actual BMW side at some point, whether it be in our dealer extranet or whether it be as a BMW Financial Services customer. But we see a lot of opportunity in here, and it's just a matter of prioritization and with all the other projects we got going on. So that's my talk. If there are any questions, please let me know. We're choosing the silence.
What was the time to deploy to get
I think between 3 and 6 months. Yeah, I think it depends on where you start the clock. The attorneys take a long time, right? Like so if you start the clock after when we actually say go, it's like. Yeah, that's what it was. That was the world peace. That was the problem. That was the stickler. Oh, go ahead. There's one right here.
Molly, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Just a quick one. Does your team maintain it and update it, or is that done by Nuance?
I'd say half and half. Well, actually, it's more like 70-30. Our team manages and updates. So we get reports on when a customer hits a dead end, and if we should resolve it by actually responding to that question instead of saying, I'm sorry, I can't help you. So that happens. But if we want any additional logic, if we want to change some major, let's say we want to change the way it looks, obviously Nuance takes care of that.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So you said when you first went to look for a solution, you hadn't thought about an intelligent assistant. I guess since you've implemented, you've had it for about a year, what are your thoughts now on this, on the intelligent assistant to carry out the objectives that you had originally? And it's so right now it's just on the Up2Drive where they answer questions about the financing. Are you thinking about deploying it? You said you were thinking about deploying it to the BMW site, maybe to answer a broader set of questions about what kind of vehicle would be good for me, that kind of thing?
I think it's more, so we have to realize we're the financing arm, so our manufacturing side of the business handles a lot of and obviously we have to rely a lot on our dealers to sell the product, what have you. But I think the most logical step would be our dealer extranet that where all of our BMW dealers log in and manage the deal flow, right? So like if you go to one of our stores and you submit a credit application, that deal flow is there and all the appropriate documents have to be assigned. So it's all within this sort of workflow that we have in our home build process, a home build dealer extranet called Infobon. And in that area, I think that's where dealers we have a call center just for our dealerships. And as with any other call center, 70, 80% of the questions are the same questions, but they're account specific. So, so if it's like, if like Dan, the customer comes in and says, I need to know what's the status of Dan Miller's loan, it has to have some sort of account integration. And I think that's the next logical step, just because we see our dealers are moving faster and they're demanding more and more methods of communication. And I also see this probably in the insurance side, where you have dealers out there, or you have different offices, and they all have to communicate to a sort of central kind of organization. I see a tremendous opportunity there.
Question?
Hi, two questions actually. The first one is, how often do you have to, or do you have a recurring process to optimize the virtual agent, like every week or every month, whatever? And the second one is, I was just testing.
Oh, man.
No bug.
Yeah, good.
But if you don't find if you're not satisfied with the answer, you get a phone number. Didn't you consider live chat as an intermediate step, and why or why not?
So first question is how much of a maintenance. So when it's deployed, it was deployed very quickly, and we fortunately had a tremendous amount of back data that was already tagged and ready to go, because we had a pretty sophisticated knowledge base. And so that was great. And then when we launched it, it was a very intense first week, very intense first month, and then as month 3 came by, it tapered off. So by the time it was 6 months out, we didn't need that kind of interaction. Because if you think about it, there's only a finite number of information that we're going to ask the question, they're going to talk to Up2Drive about. And anything that's outside of it, like what's the weather outside and this and that. I mean, we have a strategy to deflect those calls to say, hey, it sounds great to me. Why don't we talk about your car? Sort of bringing them back. So the number of times we have to go back to it is actually quite minimal. In fact, I think I calculated this. It's a tenth of a full-time equivalent, like a tenth of an FTE that's managing this right now. And that is pretty impressive, considering it takes 1,000 interactions a month. And we're not actually, just like the Ticketmaster the example, we think we can promote it more and make it more visible on the website, and probably have it pop up immediately and have it the primary source of interaction. So that's the first part. The second part is we didn't do live chat because there are certain there's certain regulations that we have to kind of avoid, as far as like discussing credit information over live chat, especially if it's unsecure, and that we have to deal with. Really, just our personal philosophy is, you're buying a car, this is an important decision for you. We really feel like you need to talk to our specialist. We don't call them call center people. They really are loan specialists, and they know everything about your financing. So we kind of forego technology and have them call a person, because it's that important.
Question back here. Sorry.
Yes, hi. You might have covered this, and I might have missed it. I apologize if so, but on the topic of humor, you mentioned that you added some elements of humor to it. I think humor is key, and has been key in the adoption of things like Siri and others. To what extent have you built that in? You just mentioned that when they ask about the weather, you want to get them back into the domain, but does it know the meaning of life and all these standard things that people try to throw at it?
Yes. Okay, so this was the most fun part about this project. And we received a document of social interactions. I believe it may have been compiled from all the other sort of social questions that are asked. Basically all the things that people play around with, and perhaps nuances of their clients. I'm not sure. I think that may be the case. But that was one of those things where we found a lot of fun, because I think it's very easy for companies to just answer all the content-relevant questions of your business and sort of leave the social stuff out of it. But I think to have a full experience, to really make sure that customer thinks that you've really thought through a lot of this stuff, you really need to address the social and just the playing around. Because they're trying to validate this tool. They're trying to say, like, is this real? Is this for real? I mean, you see more articles on how you can goof Siri than the actual things that it can do. And I think that's really important here. So we added some, there's questions like, do you like wine? or whatever. Like, and my boss, the president, really likes Jameson. So I said, no, how about a Jameson? Is it 5 o'clock yet? Something like that, you know. Or we did this over happy hour, so trust me. There's some fun things in there, but it's one of those things where we think that's just as important as the content relevant questions. Otherwise, you're just talking to an FAQ.
Oh, great. I think let's
Thank-
give thanks again to Pawan.
Thank you.